What's up, BLG? How are you, buddy? Good morning.
Good. How's it going?
Good. Do you have hesitation calling the Eagles a true Super Bowl contender?
I don't know how anyone could when, how many teams are you ranking above them right now in the NFC?
Lions.
Right. And who else? They beat the Packers.
Lions.
Yeah. So I agree.
Do you think, so here's how I look at Nick Sirianni right now, Brandon, is that, the Eagles won. Awesome. Hurts is great. Saquon Barkley is great. Oh, Kellen Moore, what great play calling, right? Like, Nick Sirianni tried to screw it up, but he couldn't do it, or nothing about Nick Sirianni. And then when they lose, fire Nick Sirianni. He's the problem. Even after wins, and believe me, Brandon, you know this. I've done sports media in this town for a long time. The coach of the Eagles gets so much crap, even in wins. The head coach and the quarterback always hears it. Jalen's not hearing it a whole lot right now. It's all on Nick, and it's a tough spot to be in, to be the head coach of, even when things go, even when you win games, you get blamed for it.
Yeah, I had this frustration a lot late in the Doug Peterson era as well, where it's just, and then just kind of just something I feel like I've realized over the years where, coaches get a disproportionate amount of blame a lot of the time. And I think part of it's because, the coach, you're not buying his jersey. You're buying the Jalen Hurts jersey. You don't want to criticize that guy. It's your favorite player. He's on the background of your iPhone or your phone page. Like, that's the player who you're not even incentivized to criticize. So I do think there's like a whole philosophical thing going on there. But I do think with Sirianni specifically, part of it is the ambiguity about the role and exactly what does he do. So that kind of lends itself to when there is the win, you don't maybe see it as much, and when they lose, and he's obviously making mistakes with game management, then you're getting more frustrated about that. So it's almost like, part of it, I think there's, him, but part of it is that the role the Eagles have put him in.
Yeah, so like Sean McVay is looked at as a top coach in the NFL. He's the scheme. He's the offense. He's the reason why you pay him $10 million a year, right? Nick Sirianni's never been looked at, but Nick Sirianni has had success and has had a lot of success. If you pluck Nick Sirianni off of the Eagles this year and you brought somebody else in, percentage-wise, how many coaches in the NFL right now do you think could have the Eagles doing the same thing that they've been doing this year and in previous seasons?
I don't know. It's a good question. It's so tough to, I think, parse through Nick Sirianni's winning record, which is obviously great. Again, and then also what specifically he contributes. I think the biggest thing you can really point to is the culture. And clearly that has rebounded this year after a really disastrous stretch to end last season. So I guess you kind of look at that. But there have been game management mistakes this year. And there have been issues with the offense and slow starts at times. So are things where there's frustrations. Now, I guess we're seeing some less of that. And overall, the team is operating cohesively. So you have to give him credit for them having some answers. But I think going back to the contender question, it's kind of just like, I don't think Nick Sirianni prevents them from being a contender. I don't think that's the issue. I think it's that when you get to the playoffs, is he going to give them an edge? Is he going to make those right big decisions in a big game? And for me, I don't think he can't do it. It's not that like they don't stand a chance. It's just that I think there's been enough here where I don't like fully trust it.
Oh, yeah, for sure. No, like, I think that the last thing you just said, BLG, is how I feel. Does he give you a coaching advantage when you get to the playoffs and you're facing the top coaches, the top coordinators, and he's not calling the offense anymore, so that's a little bit different right now. And I felt like for a long time, Andy Reid, when he was with the Eagles, one of my biggest criticisms was when he got to the playoffs and he faced one of the top defensive coordinators. Like John Fox for years ate Andy Reid's lunch when he was the defensive coordinator of the Giants, and then when he went to Carolina as the head coach, at least in that NFC Championship game. But it's natural when you're facing the better defensive coordinators. Of course, it's going to be harder to beat them because that's one of the best defensive coordinators. And it's kind of the same thing with Nick Sirianni. Does he give you a coaching advantage when you get to the playoffs? And like, I kind of feel the same way about Dan Campbell. And Dan Campbell's now a darling of the NFL. You watch those Lions games, they've been blowing everybody out for the most part. He makes bad decisions during games. He goes for it on fourth downs that don't work out. He makes bad decisions on challenges and things like that. So I just think that we pay such close attention to everything that Nick Sirianni does, we're crazy about it, to where if we took a step back and you looked at it, it's like maybe he is actually doing a good job.
Yeah, but the context is key, and I think that's something that you easily lose track of as someone locked into a certain team. That's only natural, but I do think that's fair to say that there's other coaches too. I've seen actually some Lions fans who are getting after Dan Campbell and his game management. I tend to actually like what he does, and I think the difference between I would say Dan Campbell and Nick Sirianni for me, just to kind of go into some of the issues I have with Sirianni, is that I think with Campbell, his guiding principle, and maybe to a fault sometimes, is going to be that we're going to be aggressive. And he kind of sticks with that and he lives or dies with that. And I kind of respect that more. He kind of has a mantra that culture of the Lions, who are the physical, aggressive team, like it fits. I think Sirianni, and even by his own admission, like some of his decision making is so like erratic or random or haphazard, where like I'm not really sure what's fully guiding this. Like in the Jags game, he's aggressive with a lot of those decisions, but then at the end of the game, the 4th and 4, he's kicking this long field goal instead of going for it. So it's like, what do you actually believe in? Like, are you aggressive? Are you not? So that's kind of where I think he loses the plot a little bit.
Thursday night, so it's a short week. We're already on Tuesday, and this game is going to come really, really quick. And this is going to be the however many years it adds up to be. I guess 20 years since there's been a repeat winner in the NFC East, right? Like everybody's like, it's going to be the Eagles or the Cowboys this year. Nope, it's going to be the Eagles or the Commanders. So it's crazy how you can't get a repeat winner in the division. This is one of these games, Brandon, where it's not a measuring stick game, but it's going to tell you where the Eagles are at this point in the season. Because frankly, the Commanders are good. I love their quarterback. They're coming in the Lincoln Financial Field on Thursday Night Football, primetime game. This is a veteran team. This Eagles team is a veteran team. Their defense is young, no doubt about it. But this is a game the Eagles should win. And I want to see them do it. They've been beating up on these bad teams. The Commanders, they're well coached. Dan Quinn's done a great job since getting there. They have some young, dynamic players on offense. But, I mean, this has got to be a win on Thursday night for me to totally buy in. Like, yeah, I feel great about this team. This is the team. Do you agree?
I think this is a must-win game from the standpoint of the division. Like, if you look at the Commanders' remaining schedule, it's not that tough. It's really not, outside of the other Eagles game that they play. And if the Eagles lose this, like I don't know that they can really make up the ground on the Commanders. It's not impossible, but I think it's kind of tough because the Eagles have some tough games, obviously coming up here. Rams, maybe they're just okay. This loss to the Dolphins, but Ravens game, that's going to be challenging. Steelers, I think that's going to be pretty challenging. Steelers have been looking pretty good with Russell Wilson back there, so like they almost have to. I feel like they kind of have to win this one to make sure they can at least split, and it might come down to actually needing that head-to-head tiebreaker against this Commanders team because I just don't think they're going away. Like, they lost to the Steelers. Like the game came down to a point. It was really close. The false start at the end, or the offside. So like I just think that this team is really, really good, and it's not even just about the measuring stick part of it all and gauging where the Eagles are at, although that is certainly a factor and kind of makes like, okay, you beat the Cowboys, great, but now let's see what it looks like on Thursday. But it's also really just for the actual importance of winning this division and needing to beat them.
Yeah, so short week. Jordan Mailata, his practice window has been opened. And I know he had said last night on WIP that there's a chance he starts this week. If it's Sunday, you think that he starts, but maybe with Thursday, it's a little bit too soon. Fred Johnson did a great job until you saw him chasing around Micah Parsons on Sunday, and you're like, all right, we got to remember he still was a backup to start the season. He's done a great job. You think Mailata's back on Thursday, and Devontae came up with a he didn't practice yesterday because of an injury. Where does that stand?
Yeah, Devontae also missed some time in practice last week with that hamstring, so I'm guessing that it's kind of just like a ramp-up thing, that they're really just being extra cautious with him and making sure to get him to Thursday, even though they didn't actually practice or do anything on Monday, just an estimated injury report. But with Jordan, I think there's a real chance he does play, not only because he said that, and Nick Sirianni basically said that as much, didn't rule it out. It's because if the Eagles are going to open his window here, again, they're not really actually practicing this week anyway. So there isn't a whole lot of value in so with some other guys that they've done this for, opening the window, they were valuing getting those practices in and kind of seeing how the player responds to those, but they weren't necessarily activating them that week. They would do it the next week or so once they were ready, and they had the data from practices to see how they would handle it. But with Jordan Mailata, again, there's really no benefit of doing that this week. The only benefit of doing it is giving him the chance to play. So, I think it's going to come down to how does he look in whatever sessions that they do. Maybe they might want to get him, that pregame workout and see how he handles that on Thursday night and kind of make him a game time decisions. But yeah, I think he has a chance.
There he is, Brandon Lee Gowton. Everything on Bleeding Green Nation. Amazing, amazing coverage. Of course, right here on PHLY, we have great Eagles coverage. But, I just don't read everything at PHLY with Bo and Zach and everybody. One last thing. Back to Nick Sirianni. And I think, he's not looked at as being the smartest guy in the world as far as being a head coach. And I think a lot of people look at him and be like, does he even know what's going on? Is he being told, is Howie just operating everything from above and he's the figurehead? Last week, he let the cat out of the bag that Jalen Hurts wasn't practicing because of an ankle injury. How does that happen? He just seemed clueless to the designation or anything. And Eagles going to get in trouble for this. It seemed like that. I noticed Pro Football Talk didn't write about it. I don't know if that was just because it happened at a weird part of the week and no one really picked up on it and made a big deal about it. But with gambling that's out there, Brandon, and we know this, you can't get caught having a guy sit out practice and give up a BS reason for it. And then the coach says a couple days later, oh, yeah, he's dealing with an ankle injury. Where does this go from here?
Yeah, it was weird, too, because it was actually, Zach Berman here from PHLY that asked the question, and he prefaced his question with load management. So, he brought up to the fact that
he gave him the answer.
Yeah, so I don't really understand how Nick got tripped up on the Nick, who doesn't like revealing things to a fault, to a point where it's just all right, you can actually, not everything is a competitive advantage. You can actually give us some color and insight here. So really weird to me that he tripped up on that. I mean, the thing there is hey, either tell the truth, or if you're going to lie, make sure that everyone's on the same page, and everyone's lying. And yeah, so I think, the Eagles line, I think is going to be that, if they're talking to the league or whoever, their defense of it would be that, hey, it's ankle, but every player is dealing with some kind of bumps and bruises and soreness, and it hasn't risen to the level of where it's actually the serious thing.